You can't hear me? Okay. I understand from our colleagues in the back, or the cameraman and the camera woman, that they can't hear me. So is that Tom? Everything okay? Yes? You can now? Can you? It's fixed. Excellent. So I will start again for the sake of our video afterwards. So good morning, my dear colleagues and friends. Today is the last time I am here interacting with you as the spokesperson for the president of the GA, Ms. María Fernanda Espinosa. Last Friday, some of you were here when we spoke about the great cooperation we had. So once again to you, many, many thanks for the excellent job you did and the terrific working relationship. I really appreciate it. Today, however, and prior to her entering this room, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the woman who made all of this possible. Working over this last year with and for Ms. María Fernanda Espinosa was a lifetime honor to me. I am grateful and humbled for the trust she deposited in me, in my work, and in me as a member of her team. I can only give thanks to the PJ for having the opportunity to witness from a front row seat history being made. Ms. Espinosa was not only the first woman from Latin America and the Caribbean, as we all know, to become PGA, she also and her team produced excellent work in a record period of time. If you ask me about the way she delivered over the current GA session, I will tell you that numbers don't lie. I can say without a doubt that Ms. Espinosa and her team produced the equivalent work of several years in just one. And she did this, all this, with remarkable professionalism, with unique mastery of the UN issues, with warmth and quintessential diplomatic skills, with a down-to-earth attitude, and always, always focusing on the needs of member states without forgetting the people, we, the peoples, the real people that she wanted to bring closer to the UN. So, you know, we talk a lot nowadays about models of compassionate leaders to solve our global challenges in an effective way. Well, over the last year, I can tell you, I saw a real one in action, the real deal, working day in, day out to deliver on the UN agenda, leaving no one behind. And I wish the world had more Espinosas to rely on. So thank you very much for your time. And now let's start our press conference, shall we? I will go to the back and see if Madam President has arrived. Thank you. Thank you for coming, because I know it's a busy day for everybody, so thank you.
I'm here.
That's okay, that's okay. It's our colleague working with us today, another cameraman. And today, Madam President, as in other press conferences, we have interpretation, English into Spanish, so, and vice versa, of course. Thank you very much. And without further ado, I think I said some words before. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Did you watch the lovely video that was prepared by the communications team under the guidance of my dear spokesperson, Monica Grayley? So I think that was good, a good way to open this press conference. Let me tell you at the outset that, as you know, I'm a huge defender of multilingualism, and especially in the work that I do with all of you. Unfortunately, I only speak 3 of the UN languages, but I try to use them and exercise them as much as I can. And I really appreciate the Spanish department, Spanish news, of course, because they reflect very much of my own region's culture, tradition, and also I try and use French as much as I can. So once again, good morning, everyone. It is really so nice to see you all again. And as you know, this is our last press conference, at least in my capacity as president of the UN General Assembly. This time, instead of talking a large part of this interaction with me reporting back, we have decided to put on some highlights of my presidency, including some from the official trips I undertook in the video that you just saw. I think it's much better because images speak more than thousands and thousands of words. My office has just finalized a very comprehensive report which will be available online for all of you to look at. But I will give you some figures, of course, in advance of the report before it gets posted into our website. But as you know, I have created this practice of formally reporting back to member states every 3 months. So every 3 months, I share with all member states the summary of the activities of the General Assembly. I think this has been extremely useful, especially for some smaller missions that they cannot cover all the ground and all the agenda items. They can always refer to the reports that I share with them. But I said I will share with you some of the numbers and figures before the overall report gets posted. But during the 73rd session, the General Assembly adopted 341 resolutions. I think that, and perhaps we will have a little more. We are still expecting perhaps to have a few more, but 341, I am told that this is a record number in several years, and there are 341, and basically my call to member states has been, let's read the resolutions that we have adopted again, and let's deliver and implement using, this norm-setting power of the General Assembly. And I'm told that it is the highest number ever in resolutions of the General Assembly. We also had the highest number of agenda items since 2001. In total, we had 178 agenda items of the agenda. This session convened 108 formal plenary meetings, so 9 meetings less than last year, and this was done in purpose because we tried to streamline the work of the General Assembly. I chaired 64 of them myself personally, and the issue is that we tried to pack as many items as we could and streamline the number of formal plenary meetings. We had more than 52 informal meetings of the plenary, briefings, interactive dialogues, thematic debates, and multi-stakeholder panels during the 73rd session of the General Assembly. In total, the GA had over the last session 55 informal consultations, 55. And I have to say that I also held these informal conversations with permanent representatives, 9 of them during this year. This very well known now as they're called the morning mingas. The word minga, as you know, means collective work. In Ecuador's traditional language, Quechua, minga means collective work. So we have had 9 mingas. The modality of the minga is basically Chatham House rules, informal conversations, and we circulate summaries of the conversations to all member states. The Minga's contents, reports, and summaries are also going to be posted online. So we have delivered on all 7 priorities. I would like to highlight, for example, the global campaign against plastic, the Women in Power high-level events, my group of gender advisors, and the sustained work on gender parity and women's empowerment during the whole year. And, of course, our work to advance multilateralism, the dialogue, the narrative, the interaction, the conversation about the irreplaceable role of the United Nations and the need to strengthen multilateralism. Thanks to the support we have received from member states, the Secretary General, the UN staff, from you as journalists and from individuals in general. I think that we have managed together to transform the UN headquarters in an area free from single-use plastics, and I feel very proud of that. This was really the walk the talk part. Our global communications campaign to beat plastic pollution reached in the region of 400 million people worldwide, and we have sowed the seeds for more global action against the modern-day challenge of our seas and rivers, which is plastic pollution. As president, I convened 20 high-level meetings of the General Assembly, 18 of which were based on the mandates from resolutions coming directly from member states, as well as two high-level events at my own initiative, the Women in Power series of events, and also the work on disabilities and our interaction with heads of state and ministers regarding disability-inclusive development. As you know, my office also has led preparation for the 6 mandate high-level meetings to be held in the margins of the general debate of the 74th session in the General Assembly. So my team and I are responsible for organizing all the summit-level meetings during high-level week. So, but I think that in spite of the ambitious agenda, the amount of summit-level meetings, 5 of them the coming week, we have been able to manage the choreography and to organize, because as you know, I have a very able team. We have kept our promise to work every day in order to make the UN more relevant to all people and also to bring people closer to the United Nations. During this period, I granted over, listen to this number, 250 interviews, more than 15 press conferences in New York and abroad. 250 interviews, I cannot even believe that. But PJ, and several of them to you. I undertook 22 official trips to 33 destinations in 30 countries. Everywhere I have been as your president of the General Assembly, I sought to listen to people. I listened to women and girls, to young people, elderly people, the people who work and engage to make the world a better place, indigenous peoples, persons with disabilities. That was my condition to visit countries. Of course, a formal official visit, which is extremely important, but also the contact with people on the ground. And everywhere I went, I met with the UN country team as well to see how the reform process was going also on the ground. So, and to me, this is key, you know, to keep listening in order to create a more just, prosperous, and sustainable world. I will not now stop here. I'm very eager to listen to your questions, and I thank you very, very much for being so close to our office, for being so engaged and interested in the work that we did, and now the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Madam President. And the first question goes to Valeria Robeco from UNGA. Valeria.
Thank you, Monica. And Madam President, first of all, I want to express my sincere congratulations on your term on behalf of UNGA. Thank you for your commitment to ambitious priorities and for your continued cooperation with the UN Press Corps. So turning to my question, I was wondering if now that your mandate as President of the General Assemblies is coming to an end, are you considering in the future the possibility of running for another office here at the UN, and I'm meaning to become the first female Secretary General? Thank you.
Well, I have to say, number one, that we cannot have a better Secretary General now and today. This is the leader that the UN needs today. And I think it's very early to think about it because there's so many more years ahead of my dear friend, the Secretary General, Antonio Guterres. It's too early to think about it.
Okay, I have Evelyn Ahmed and I have Ibsen in the back.
Thank you,
and of
Monica.
course you.
Evelyn Leopold. Pleasure to see you. What are you going to do from tomorrow on? How are you going to spend your time now that you have a lot of free time? And secondly, you mentioned 400 million people worldwide in connection with plastic. What did you mean by that? I didn't quite get the sense.
Sure. Can we just get another question very quick? Ahmed, go ahead. Then we have two.
Thank you, Madam President. All the best wishes in your next endeavors. I mean, the numbers are striking, the accomplishments have done, but I'm sure that you had much bigger plans and much more urging priorities that you were not met. So it's a multiple parts question. What are the issues that have not yet been accomplished? And in hindsight, what would you tell your successor, Ambassador Tijani Mohammed Bandi, before he's assuming his position as a PGA? Thank you.
Well, I will answer to both questions. The 400 million, it means the people who have interacted with our platforms, with the concert we organize in Antigua and Barbuda, the people that are connected to the global campaign that we undertook, the Play It Out, the Face It Out, our partnership with National Geographic. I think it is all the interaction that our platforms have created. So we were able to identify, of course, the volume of interest and interaction. And also, today we are launching and posting the final video of the Played Out, finally. So it's going to be launched today. This is also very fresh news. What I am going to do after tomorrow, I have to be very, very frank with you, very honest. I have been so much swimming in the waters of my role that I didn't think about the day after. I didn't strategize very much, but I can tell you two things for sure. First of all, I happen to have a very crowded agenda until January or February. So it's not going to be a lot of free time, unfortunately, Evelyn, because I have a lot of commitments that I have made, and they're going to start even this week, before even before the high-level week. And during high-level week, I have also several commitments that I have. And so I do have an agenda. And what I can tell you is, first of all, everything that I do in the future is going to, be connected to the United Nations, multilateralism, gender parity, empowerment of women, the work that I have been doing for so many years, and of course, climate and the environment. And this is, and here, with all modesty, I can say this, but it's not that I am improvising a new agenda. I have been doing this for the past 30 years of my life, and it will continue from different corners, from different angles, but I will remain playing the international game with responsibility and with commitment to the multilateral system and the work of the UN. Your question was on what would I recommend the incoming PTA, no? That was your question. And I have to say that to give advice, it's very difficult, but what I can tell you is that we have had a very organized transition process between his team and my team. And perhaps a few things that I have requested him to continue is the gender parity agenda. I was very pleased that he became a gender champion, even last week. The gender and the women's rights agenda is extremely important to make sure that we expand on our plastics campaign worldwide. And there's so many processes that are of utmost importance for next year, which is the Beijing Plus 25 process, the UN 75 process, and our commemoration, which is not going to be only one commemoration, but an entire process. And I was able to pass a very specific mandate from member states to undertake a journey to reposition, rephrase, revamp the narrative on multilateralism. And what are the pending issues? I think that there are several, because it's impossible to do it all, but I would perhaps highlight the need to continue to work seriously on the revitalization of the General Assembly, to streamline and improve our working methods, to improve the way we deliver our accountability mechanisms, the transparency of the work we do at the General Assembly. And we had several pending issues in our resolution on revitalization. But I would put a lot of work. This work never makes front pages, and you know better than me. But it is so important that we get our act together and we deliver better on the work we do every day.
Okay, I have here Ibbotson and Hamid and Stefano. So Ibbotson, go ahead. I got you in the back. Yes.
Hi, Madam President. Thank you for the press conference, and thanks for Monica also for doing a great job all this year. My question is regarding the press, and you said that you granted more than 250 interviews and 15 press conferences. How important you think that UN officials should continue this kind of work, being more close to the press and talk to the press, given the fact that many UN officials actually don't do that as they're supposed to? And do you have any, if I'm not mistaken, you are in support of appointing a press envoy by the Secretary General. When do you think this should happen? Thank you. Or the idea of appointing a press.
Well, I think your point on bringing the UN closer to the press and to the media, it is something that I have taken very seriously, personally, because the echo, the translation of our work happens through you. It doesn't, it's the only way that we have to translate our work to the outside world. So I'm a strong believer that we should all do that. And I kept telling my dear brothers and sisters, the permanent representatives, each one of you has to become a spokesperson for the UN. And of course, they are very happy with the idea, and some do an outstanding job. And also, I know it's difficult, but the UN is more than the Security Council. Our parliament is the General Assembly, and we need to give it more visibility, more connection to the people that we represent and we work for. Regarding the Secretariat, it is the Secretariat, of course, responsibility, but I think it has brought a lot of impetus. The new Undersecretary for Global Communications is a very experienced, wise woman. And I am sure that there are some strong and profound changes that are going to happen also in the House. And I'm very excited that she's here and she's in action. I'm, of course, speaking about Melissa Fleming.
Okay, Hamid and Stefano. Hamid, go ahead, please.
Muchas gracias, Presidente. My name is Abdelhamid Sayam. Y gracias por todos. Gracias a Mónica también. Tengo dos preguntas. La primera en español, ¿por qué no visitaste los países en conflicto como Yemen or Libya or Gaza? And my second question, you gave us a press conference in the beginning and you spoke about 7 priorities. Can you give yourself marks about where did you achieve the best and where you haven't been satisfied with your achievement? Thank you very much.
Thank you for excellent questions. First of all, the visits to areas of conflict. I received invitations to visit certain countries. I didn't receive invitations to visit these particular countries. Of course, I was entitled to do so, but the idea is that whenever the President of the General Assembly visits a country, it's because there is something to contribute, to help, to support, and sometimes countries that are in conflict, sometimes protracted conflicts, long conflicts, how much is that you can make the difference. Sometimes the behind-the-scenes quiet work can be more productive and more impactful. And in some cases, I have been doing that, more working on the behind-the-scenes kind of mode. And I think it can have perhaps better outcomes and results. You know, self-marking myself on the 7 priorities, I think it is a task of my colleagues at the UN, of yourselves. I have reports on each one of the priorities. I'm really satisfied with what we were able to achieve. And of course, you can always do more and better. And each one of the priorities, I can list you things to do still that we could continue, we could, you know, do more and better. What would be a work plan for the future in each one of the 7. But I am happy that I took them very seriously. We had programs of work and highlights, things to deliver on each one of the 7. And I am very pleased to say that we were able to comply with all the commitments and implement every program of work on each one of the 7 priorities.
Thank you, Madam President. Before I go to Stefano, I have all of you in the back as well. We would like to say that you are live on Twitter, so if you're following our UN_PJ account, you can follow us live as well. So, Stefano, your question. And then I have here on my list, after you, Elena, Alejandro, and Ibis. Go ahead, Stefano. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam President, and congratulations for your past achievement and your future achievements too. When you did, last September, 1 year ago, you were at the General Assembly as a president when President Trump delivered, I think, the strongest attack to multilateralism I ever heard in this room, because he talks about the importance of sovereignty, and you just say how important is multilateralism. So I want to ask you if this made your job more difficult after the speech when the president of the most important country, the country that funded this institution, made that speech. And then last is this, it is, the language that you use here, all the people at the UN, is the language of diplomacy. But for certain issues, for example, climate change, and when you see the other, who is opposed certain policy, use a language usually that is very direct, harsh. Don't you think that the language of diplomacy, sometimes for certain issue, is too soft, and you, the Secretary General, and others officials should start to use a language that maybe is more in tone with the issue and with the new world of, online, social media, and so on, so that maybe your message can go through.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to go
want
ahead?
to?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, 2 very good questions. One is on the speech from President Trump. I have to say that I have learned a lot this year. The number 1 issue is that we have to look in a very respectful manner to some member states that can differ on one opinion or another. I have had, and I have to be very honest with you, a very constructive and good relationship with the U.S. mission here. Of course, our host country, but as many other countries, were in agreement with some issues or themes or particular aspects. And I think that we have multilateralism is about collective action. It is about global leadership. But it has also, it needs to adapt to dissent, and it needs to adapt to different views. We had a very good discussion on multilateralism that I organized with the main organs, where President of Security Council, President of ECOSOC, and Secretary General, and myself. And I think one of the learning bites that we had that day is that sometimes consensus cannot be unanimity, and that we need also to be the house for dissent. And the way to do it is with a very frank yet respectful dialogue in the House. And I would say that my working relationship with the U.S. has been very good during this year. The number two is the language of diplomacy that is too soft for the challenges we face. And I agree with you in a way, but what is the best way to engage different parties, different views, different positions? It's through dialogue. As a poet, I really believe on the transformative power of words. And we have to be very, very careful, to keep the conversation going. It is the most important part. In my experience of, perhaps 30 years of international work, I can tell you the blaming and shaming does not work. The conversation, the respectful exchange, the friendly dialogue, collegiality, that is, the golden jewel of diplomacy. And of course, we need to use hard data. We need to use the information we have. It just came out, the first report of the four years of implementation of the SDGs, and the information is really worrisome. And here we're talking about 20 and more independent scientists from all over the world that are telling us we are backwards on climate mitigation. We are backwards in biodiversity conservation. We are backwards in inequalities. We are backwards in waste management. So we're not doing well. We're not doing well. The response to that is action. The response to that is engaging in dialogue geared towards more action. If the words of diplomacy are soft, I am also a strong believer of soft power and soft words to convince counterparts.
Thank you, Madam President. I've got now Elena and Alejandro and Ives. Elena, please go ahead.
Thank you. Congratulations, Ms. President, for your mandate, and also thank you to the spokesperson, Monica. Two very brief questions. Do you consider that your origin and Hispanic roots made it easier for you to have a greater connections with some countries in the world? And I refer specifically to Spanish-speaking countries and Portuguese-speaking countries. And also in this mandate full of activities for the 7 priorities that was very global and very comprehensive, did you find an obstacle for all the 7 priorities that you would like to say to us a main obstacle for the 7 priorities that you found? Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. We go now to Alejandro. Alejandro, go ahead. And then we answer to Madam President.
Gracias, Mónica. Presidenta, todo el éxito del mundo para lo que viene en el futuro. Yo quiero consultarle si nos puede contar un poco más algo en relación con lo que nos mencionaba hace unos minutos sobre los temas por trabajar en el proceso de reforma de Naciones Unidas. Y quiero si nos puede mencionar un tema en particular sobre el cual quiera llamar la atención de lo que debería ser el trabajo a futuro más urgente para avanzar en ese proceso de fortalecimiento de Naciones Unidas. Y no quiero desaprovechar la oportunidad también para preguntarle por su mensaje, su legado a las mujeres de América Latina. Finalmente usted y su historia avanzó. ¿Cuál es su mensaje para ellas?
Thank you, Alejandro.
Well, on your very good question of greater connection with the Spanish and Portuguese-speaking countries, yes, I think that the Latino origin, of course, it helps a lot. But I really took very seriously my job as a global president. And wherever I travel, also, I really was very serious about keeping the proper regional balance. But of course, culture, DNA, and language do help a lot. And I see myself speaking with greater passion when I use my own language. And this is normal. It happens to all of you. And most of you do not have English as your mother tongue. but you make the effort of, interacting and speaking, different languages. That is the richness, the miracle that multilingualism make. But of course, closer connection, a lot of interaction with my brothers and sisters from Latin America and the Caribbean and during my tenure. And I'm very thankful to them. Regarding the 7 priorities, the main obstacles, I would say just perhaps one, lack of time. Lack of time. And the 7 priorities, I told you, it's because, we needed to work 7 days a week to deliver. And it has happened. I haven't taken, I think, one day off during my tenure, and I'm very proud to say that. Proud, and also publicly I apologize to my cabinet's families, because we have been using a lot of their time and their family time during this year. But more time would have done it. And both your questions on reform and on a message to women in Latin America. On reform, I think that we have like 3, ¿cómo se dice? Patas? 3 pillars of the reform. One is the reform of the UN, under the leadership of the Secretary General, that started in January. I think that we do have, as member states, we need to have more ownership of the reform process and support more the Secretary General to deliver on their 3 pillars: the management, the development, and the peace and security. But because I see that we have left the Secretary General a little bit alone, and the secretariat apparatus to deliver, I think that we should do an oversight we should transit with the reform, because it is a very ambitious and profound reform. I'm very optimistic that we are going to deliver, but if we give the support and the backing that the Secretary General needs. And I was saying the other 2 elements, Security Council reform and the revitalization of the General Assembly. Extremely important. Even the ECOSOC is rethinking the VNRs, how we do better on the SDGs, etc. So I think reform has to be the word of the day, because we have to believe that the UN is an institution that wants to be better every day, to deliver better for the people we serve. So, I mean, we are not like a written in stone organization from 75 years ago. We have to be contemporary, 21st century organization, of course, sticking to the founding principles of the UN, but to see that every day we can do something that transforms and improves the way we work and deliver in all fronts. Secretariat, UN agencies and programs, the Assembly, the Security Council, ECOSOC, every organ in the same way. So we have to think that we are constantly renewing ourselves and reforming ourselves. My message to women in Latin America, I would say, thank you. Thank you, because they have been my engine, my inspiration, my force. Whenever I felt tired, that my energy was going down, I just thought about them. All these young women in Latin America, the girls in Latin America, and I know that in a way they're looking at me. And I said, I need to deliver. And as women, we know that we cannot be, there was, a lady president, a woman president. It happens, every 15 years or 20. It does happen. But no, we really needed to leave a footprint and to tell them that they are entitled. They are entitled, and that they have the responsibility to participate in politics, to engage professionally, to be paid equally when they do the same job and they have the same capacities, that they have to have rights and dignity because they deserve that. And that would be my message. Thank you for being my inspiration, my engine, and my force during this year.
Okay, I've just got a message from London, BBC London, asking if they can ask a question through Twitter. So we would say
sure,
yes to them. But let's now focus here. We have Ibis, Maria, and Beto. And I've got you, Harrison. Yeah, go ahead. Ibis.
Ibis Frade de Prensa Latina. Quería agradecer a las dos por el gran trabajo que han hecho. Muchísimas gracias. Usted ha destacado varias veces lo amenazado que se encuentra el multilateralismo hoy en el mundo, pero en lo que va de año hemos visto una gran cantidad de sanciones unilaterales impuestas por Estados Unidos contra numerosos países. Vemos el caso, por ejemplo, de Cuba, el recrudecimiento del bloqueo, la imposición de más sanciones, la activación del título 3 de la ley del bulto. También vemos más sanciones contra Venezuela, contra Irán, contra Siria. Y quisiera preguntarle su opinión al respecto. Muchas gracias.
Okay. Madam President.
I'm going to respond in Spanish. Perhaps it's better. Yo creo que las Naciones Unidas son muy claras en este tema de las sanciones. Es una prerrogativa del Consejo de Seguridad en general y las sanciones unilaterales realmente afectan la seguridad, el derecho al desarrollo de todos los pueblos. Está claramente establecido que las sanciones unilaterales no entran dentro del ámbito de las Naciones Unidas, y las sanciones unilaterales afectan el derecho al desarrollo de los pueblos, afectan la capacidad de poder gozar de todas los beneficios que trae el desarrollo, y muchas veces polarizan y dificultan llegar a acuerdos, consensos y a procesos de paz sostenida en algunos casos. En el caso de Cuba, bueno, pues es muy claro. Yo creo que la Asamblea General se ha pronunciado por décadas sobre esto de manera contundente.
Maria, Beto, and Linda, I have you, James. Maria, go ahead, please.
Muchas gracias. Yo también voy a usar, María Fernanda de Agencia TAS, también voy a usar la oportunidad de preguntarle por última vez en español. Muchas gracias a usted por su trabajo y muchísimas gracias a Mónica por su trabajo. Y pues mi pregunta es, pasó así que durante su presidencia en de General Assembly, la Asamblea General, uno de tratados de muchísima importancia para la paz, para todos nosotros, el tratado ANF entre Rusia y Estados Unidos, terminó su existencia y no existe más. ¿Y qué piensa usted sobre el futuro del desarmamiento, la posible carrera de armamentos ahora cuando el tratado no existe más? Gracias.
Okay. Please, Beto, go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Climate change has also been one of your priorities. And I was just wondering how satisfied or disappointed you are with the commitments or the reactions you have had from the officials during your meetings inside and outside the UN, given that we have countries which still discuss whether climate change is happening or not, including the current US administration. Thank you.
I will start responding to the climate, and then I will go to the question on the INF. Climate change, I think it is like a microcosm of what humanity can do and the response that the multilateral system can provide. And I think it is a paradox, because we have known that we really had a problem in terms of how we were making profound changes in the atmosphere that were causing unprecedented effects on livelihoods of people, on security, on food security, etc. So we knew, and we have known, that we were in trouble since perhaps 30 years ago or more. The first studies on climate change, I think they have half a century now. We know what the problem is. Humanity has been able to give technological responses to the problem. We know better how to build resilience, how to build safer cities, what are the measures that we need to take, and yet we haven't acted. You know, this connection between the knowledge and the technology in our capacity to act has a huge gap, and we have to accept that. The decisions that we have taken over the course of the UN Convention on Climate Change haven't been enough. So we need to scale up in ambition. Even the Paris Agreement is not enough. If every country complies with their voluntary, it's not VNR, I get confused.
National voluntary contributions.
No, it will come to me, okay? It's an acronym, which since I have erased acronyms this year, sometimes I need them to explain things, and I forgot, but it's the National Determined Contributions, the NDCs. If we comply with all the NDCs of the Paris Agreement, we still go close to 3 degrees, which would, just wipe out some of the existing countries in our planet. So what is happening? We need to increase ambition, increase the resources, increase the access to low carbon technologies, look at carbon neutral development as the only way forward for humanity, because we know climate change can wipe us out. Not only countries in the south, not only the very vulnerable small island developing states, but all of us. It's going to affect development, it's going to affect security, it's going to affect investment, et cetera, et cetera. So the UN is here to ask countries, you need to scale up your ambition, to go faster, quicker, and more profoundly. And that's what the Climate Summit intends to do. It is about commitments, it is about action, it is about speeding up. It is about closing the gap between the information we have, the technology we have, and the capacity to act. So in this case, in climate change, we really need to walk the talk. And we really need to speed up and scale up ambition in all fronts, not only on mitigation, but in adaptation, in creation of resilience, in protecting our forests, because it's all connected. Even our plastics campaign is a contribution, to fight climate change.
Are you disappointed, Madam President, with the reactions you had from the officials you have had during your tenure?
Well, I wouldn't say that, because even in some countries that have not supported the Paris Agreement, a lot of work and action is happening at the ground level. This very country has a coalition of more than 400 cities in the United States that are using the Paris Agreement to do their urban planning. We have individual states like the state of California that is taking the climate emergency very seriously. So there is action and movement everywhere. We have to put all this willingness, this political will together and scale it up and go at a faster pace. So, and of course, there are some countries that they don't agree, they want to go slower, or they are not part of the conversation. But it is an open invitation for all, because climate change consequences. I don't even talk about climate change anymore, but climate emergency and climate crisis, because this is the truth. And on emergencies, we need to act using timelines that are adapted to emergencies. Okay, on the INF question, very quickly, the UN has a very ambitious disarmament agenda. The INF was a very positive step forward towards denuclearization, towards disarmament in general, and we are worried that that we are not keeping our promises, and I think that international law has been the bedrock of our system, and I think that we need to hold and keep our promises and respect international law and respect our agreements when we sign them.
Thank you, Madam President. I have Linda, and afterwards I have Edie, and also you in the back, and Mr. Abad. Linda, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam President. I have a question regarding reform. You had mentioned the reform of the United Nations, and especially the revitalization of the General Assembly. I was just wondering, what would you consider perhaps the top 2 or 3 actions that can be taken to improve the effectiveness of the General Assembly? And would a reduction in the number, for example, of the 178 agenda items make a difference?
Okay. Can I move now to James, please? And Edie. James, please. Go ahead. James? Okay. Edie. Yes.
Why don't you answer Linda's, because mine's going to be the last on behalf of UNGA.
Okay, no problem. Okay. Okay. I move to you, Harrison.
Dad?
Yes. We're going to have Harrison as well. Yes. Please, Harrison, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President. Looking back at the last 1 year, what are your regrets? Do you have any? And if you could turn back the hands of time, what would you do differently? Then another one, how would you say the work of the GA under your leadership impacted on the lives of the ordinary man in the streets?
On the?
On the lives of the ordinary man in the streets. How did the work of the GA under your leadership impacted on the lives of the man in the streets?
Mm-hmm.
And what advice do you have on how the GA can be more, relevant to your daily needs? Then finally, what were the pitfalls you encountered, and what is your advice to your successor in that regard?
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to have to limit to one because of our time. Okay, and I get one more before going to the back, and I have 3 questions left. Okay, please go ahead. Yes.
It's
Yes.
Jiang Guomar from China Xinhua News Agency. And congratulations, President. And it's a busy and fruitful year, 1 year of mission as a PGA. And the first days we had an interview with you, you said you are very busy and you have no time to, as a point, you had no time to write poems, but you have time to, whenever you have time, you read poems. But now that you are finishing your term as the PGA, if you are supposed to write a poem, what the first few words that come to you first?
The words that will come to you first. Okay, good. Okay, we go to these 3 questions, and then I have 3 left, okay? Okay, and I
Okay,
have you, Karen.
revitalization of the General Assembly, very straightforward. I would work more and seriously on the streamlining of the agenda of the GA. I would implement and deliver on the alignment process, alignment of the GA agenda together with the Sustainable Development Goals. We had, after 3 years of paralysis, we were able to agree on an alignment process, but this is just the beginning. And the strengthening of the office of the president. This is something that I think that that would be one of the advices I give to my successor. We need to insist on that. It is not possible that the UN does not have an organized, predictable team to support the president. That every year when you arrive, you have to come up with your cabinet, to form and organize your cabinet, to fundraise for the trust fund. You have to do everything from scratch, and the time is too short. So we should have a very strong installed capacity here. So strengthening of the office and the institutional memory of the office of the president, alignment with the 2030 agenda, and streamlining of the agenda. The questions, you asked several questions. Our colleague regrets that I have impact on people on the street, UN more relevant, and advice to my successor. I already responded to questions on advice to my successor, but I will perhaps focus on how is that we made the UN more relevant to people. And of course, this is a very timid first step, but my obsession has been to every meeting we organize, every trip that I do, I have to speak with the people out there. And I have, spoken to 30, 40 universities, engaged with young people, engaged with women's groups, with indigenous peoples' representatives. I think that they all belong, in a way, to this house. And I have made sure that even with the small capacity of our communications team, that we pushed a lot on the communications front. I don't know how much, if I have 10 young women that want to follow the path of a diplomatic career or dream that in the future they're going to preside over the General Assembly, if I have 5 indigenous leaders that feel that they're really part of the equation when we take decisions that affect their lives, if I was able to grab the hearts and minds of a group of women leaders that are in politics, that are afraid, to remain in politics because we receive a lot of harsh attacks against us, to say, okay, if she was able to overcome that, I think we have to follow that path. If I was able to, in a very humble way to contribute to that, I'll be very, very satisfied. And do things differently. It is also always connected to the lack of time, but perhaps I would have worked more and more actively and more connected to the negotiations on the revitalization of the General Assembly. I followed very closely, but I wanted to be very respectful on how ready member states were to take some decisions. But perhaps I needed to be more upfront with that. Oh, your question was on the poems.
Yeah, that's the point.
I would say, I would take the title of my last poetry book, and I would add one word. The title of my last poetry book is called Tortured Geographies. And we do live tortured geographies. But I would add that a caveat to that. Tortured geographies, but you can do wonders with love and with passion.
Thank you so much. I have Nishat and the Edie, and of course, Mr. Abadi and Carmen. Okay, let's go. Nishat. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Madam President, for wonderful 1 year, and you've been very close to all of us, and also in civil society. You have attended the Salt Lake City conference recently, and I wanted to ask you your remarks on inclusion in civil society, and also what is the role of civil society to progress in the past 2015 agenda for Sustainable Development Goals. And one more thing is that last week at the press conference, David Miliband said that SDGs are mostly engaged in rhetoric and not the action. So what is your thoughts on that? SDGs are mostly engaged in rhetoric and not on action.
Okay. Thank you. Edie, please. Okay, Carmen. And I still have the BBC question. Go ahead, Carmen.
Thank you so much.
Yes, yes. Go ahead, please.
Madam President, muchísimas gracias a las dos. Una pregunta, por favor. Yo escuché a un embajador fundador de Naciones Unidas decir que Naciones Unidas había sido un sitio de mucho éxito. Do you feel the same way as this founding member of the United Nations, that the UN has had tremendous success in people's lives? In 2019, we're at the starting point of 1945. We're under threat of countries, rogue states, terrorists who may have weapons of mass destruction, with an unprecedented number of refugees around the world. Thank you.
Okay. Edie, please.
Thank you, Madam President, and apologies for being late. You have a lot of competition because the Security Council is discussing Yemen.
We are very used to that.
On behalf of the United Nations Correspondents Association, I wanted to thank you especially, and also Monica very much, for being so available to the media. We really appreciate it. And I have one question. You have been very available, very out front. You just talked about how important communications are in the job you have. In several years, some years, we don't know exactly how many, Latin America will have the chance to choose a new Secretary General. Would you ever consider putting your hat in the ring and possibly coming back to the United Nations?
Okay, Mr. Abadi, please.
Muchas gracias, señora Presidente, por su conferencia de prensa. First of all, I would like to thank you for selecting Monica as our as your spokesperson. She has done terrific work. I also would like to mention Mark Sedon, who has cooperated fully with me. Madam President, you accomplished a lot of things, as you have given us statistics during the 73rd session. What is the legacy that you would like to leave to the international community?
Okay, and we have everybody here in the room, right? So nobody. Okay, the BBC question, Madam President, is basically which advice would you give to newcomers to the General Assembly, including the first speaker, the President of Brazil, His Excellency Mr. Jair Bolsonaro, and other first-comers as well? Thank you.
Oh, very nice question. Basically, responding to your question on civil society, I think that we really need to have a serious discussion on making the participation of civil society and main stakeholders in all spaces of the United Nations. We have to start by acknowledging that this is very much an intergovernmental house, but any intergovernmental decision, can be, putting its back to the opinion, the council, the advice, the words of civil society in its larger form. And what I have experienced this year is that it's like a case by case. We have to resolve the issue of civil society participation case by case. And I think we need to establish a predictable system to make sure that how it works is predictable. And that we are sure that the decisions we take have also always received the voice, the opinion, the experience, the vision of civil society. And I think that the Salt Lake City conference was a very strong token of that. I shared with member states both the youth climate, it's the youth compact, and also the outcome document of Salt Lake City. I think they're two, both are very, very powerful, and they should be taken into account and by member states and considered. The SDGs being more rhetoric than action, I don't think so. It has to be a combination of language, of narrative, of purpose, of political will, which comes with language, and it has to translate into action, of course. But before you do action, you need to do the language part and the policy-making part. And sometimes they say, some very critical voices of the United Nations, they tell us, but you are a talk shop. It is a talk shop. I'm a huge defender of the talking the talk part. We need to have a conversation. We need to have a dialogue. We need to take wise and informed decisions, and the policy making and the norm setting that our parliament does, which is our General Assembly, happens because of dialogue. And of course, one of the main challenges is to translate, language, narrative, political commitment policy advice into action at the ground level. In the case of the SDGs, I think that both are happening, not at the speed, not with the ambition, not with the resources we need. So we have still, 10 years to deliver on the SDGs, and that's one of the intentions and the objectives of the upcoming SDG summit next week. On the UN and the role of the UN, I would say that we do not have a plan B. The United Nations is the institution we created after the Second World War, 45 years ago, and that, of course, we have shortfalls because this is a human creation. And, of course, we need to improve the way we do things. But can you imagine the world of today without the United Nations? What it would be like? It's unthinkable. We do not have a plan B, so we better get our act together here and improve the way we build this house, we feed this house, and the way we deliver for the people in need, for the refugees you just mentioned, for our fight against terrorism, for the victims of conflict, which unfortunately and painfully are more women and girls. So that would be the answer. The issue of the legacy, it's very difficult. I think it is going to stay on you. You are going to stay here, and you will see. But if we are able to continue and to give more traction to the gender parity, women empowerment, and women's rights agenda, I would be very happy and satisfied. If we can widen the campaign to fight single-use plastics and protect our oceans, I would be very satisfied. And if we use the UN and outside the UN to reinvigorate the narrative about the irreplaceable role of the UN and of multilateralism, I would be more than happy.
And your advice for newcomers? Your advice
for newcomers to say, this is the house for dialogue. This is the house for agreement. This is the house for conversation. This is a house where we get together and we agree on things that we're going to do to improve the world. So I would say that whoever comes has to come with a constructive attitude, with an attitude that understand that we are all part of the global community, and we all belong to the same species, the human species. And on that front, we're all equal, even though I'm a great defender of diversity. Not only multilingualism, but cultural, religious, generational diversity.
Madam President, since you speak about multilingualism, and before your final considerations, I would like to say thank you very much. Muchas gracias. Muito obrigada. It has been an honor and a pleasure serving you as your spokesperson. Thank you very much.
Well, I have to thank you all, each one of you, to thank. I would really like to publicly thank Daniela Gross. She was the heart and mind behind the video that you all saw, under the incredible leadership and vision of Monica Grayley. I need also to thank each one of you through Valeria Robeco, who unfortunately, I'm sure she's covering the Yemen part. But I have to thank the UN Correspondents Association. You have been great partners to work with. And every time I cross, paths with you in the corridors, I smile at you because I know the hard work you do. I know that we very much rely on you to make the UN known by people, understood by people, loved by people. So thank you for your incredible service. And I would like to end by thanking my communications team. It is a very small team. You know them all. But together they have really done wonders. They have made the miracle of sharing the effort, the passion, and the action with all of you, but with the outside world. And my last word goes to Monica Grayley. She has not only been, an incredible spokesperson, but a wise person. The right advice at the right time, a lot of experience, a lot of wisdom, a lot of good judgment. And it has been really an honor and a privilege to have her speak on my behalf. So thank you, dear Monica, because it's been wonderful. And thank you all. Thank you. And all the best.
Stéphane Dujarric, I have the pleasure to say for the last time, the floor is yours. Thanks.
Oh. That's when the tough part comes, huh? Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. Yes, indeed. Yep. And thank you for all your support as well.
My pleasure.
Don't worry, don't worry.